with China, did you call other leaders of the world who might have an interest in that relationship, like the Prime Minister of India?
I did. I called, first I called Brezhnev in Russia, Soviet Union then, because I knew that he would be up the wall, which he was, to see a possible alliance of the United States and China against the Soviet Union. And obviously I called the Premier of Japan and India, China's direct neighbors, and South Korea, as well as others. Those are the ones that I called personally. But that was a very important thing then for many nations that have relationships disturbed or friendly with China to think that the new relationship between China and the United States would adversely affect them. So we had to reassure them that it was a peaceful commitment. And then later that same year, in '79, I met with Brezhnev to negotiate an arms control agreement, SALT II, and the main concern he had was the new relationship between the United States and China. This was although that was not my intention, that was a major back-breaking development for the Soviet Union in their competition with us in the Cold War. And they were losing all over the world, as a matter of fact, but that was the main thing about which they were concerned. You know, another thing to get to a more personal basis differences between the United States and China, we discussed this in various classes yesterday, is the savings rate. I noticed the recent data that just came out this week. An average Chinese citizen saves 50% of the family income in savings bonds and investments and so forth. The savings rate in the United States now is 0. When I was president, it was 7%. But now, in the last number of years, it's dropped down to 0. We save nothing on an average American family. So this means that in the future, China's going to have more and more savings of the Chinese people, which we're going to have to borrow. And eventually, we're going to have to do something about that in the United States. And it's going to be a very difficult political decision for American leaders, either to cut back on expenditures or to raise taxes to balance our budget. We've reached an alarming level of federal debt. And the Chinese, on the other hand, have enormous surpluses that they can use to stimulate their own economy or to invest in rapidly improving their alternative energy sources. They are in the forefront of wind power and photovoltaic cells, solar power, and so forth. So they have the freedom now to invest. So we're going to be in competition with the Chinese, and I think we're going to have to do some self-correcting in this country to make sure we can compete successfully and peacefully.
Should we welcome Chinese foreign direct investment here? Is there areas where we should not?
I think we should. Sure, I think the more mutual investments we make, let them equal our investment in Kentucky Fried Chicken and Walmart and Coca-Cola sales. I think it'd be good to have a Chinese invest too. Yes.
President Carter, I think you've touched on what is really going to be one of the most difficult aspects of our relationship. 70% of Americans today, in some poll, said they felt threatened by China economically. And if you think back to the challenges that you dealt with earlier, whether it was Taiwan or human rights, those were really issues Americans cared about, but they were not gut-wrenching domestic issues. And now we're really looking at a gut-wrenching domestic issue. And one of the things I find it's hard, people feel that there's something unfair happening out there. It's very hard to take just the point of savings which you've made. Americans, popular opinion, do feel that China has already become a threat to us. And so why should we help them, for example, with technology for green technology? China has all this money. why should we put money into the bank for China to spend to improve its green technology? How do you think we can work our way through this over the next 5 years or 10 years without really coming into ongoing tension and conflict?
Well, I think we need to basically give up our effort to change what's happening in China. And to be repetitive, what I just said a few minutes ago, we need to start correcting our own economic circumstances in our own government. But it takes a lot of political courage to raise taxes on America to balance our budget, or to cut our deficits, or to withdraw from Afghanistan and Iraq in a peremptory way and do things that will save money. And I don't think we need to fear China's becoming a center in economics. We're still enormously more powerful in our gross national product and so forth than is China. But they're growing so rapidly that I think it is a matter of us to be cautious about what we do ourselves. I saw the same poll, and it's very disturbing. The American public opinion polls show that we fear China more than we do any other country on earth. Not only economically, but politically, and even militarily. And we don't back off. China is increasing their military expenditures, but we have to realize that the American military budget is greater than the military budgets of all the other countries on earth combined. China plus Russia plus Great Britain plus France plus Israel even. Greater than all of them. And so we don't need to fear China militarily. We just need to make sure we don't ever come into a conflict with China that we can't resolve through diplomacy and through correcting our own mistakes. And I think that mutual respect and easy communication is the best way to ensure that we don't make a tragic mistake in the relationship.
Do you think if we had an incident